The moon hung low over the kingdom of Blackthorn, its pale silver light spilling across the towering stone walls of the Alpha Citadel. Tonight was the night of choosing. Across the entire werewolf kingdom, every noble pack leader, every highborn daughter, and every ambitious family had gathered in the massive ceremonial hall. The air hummed with tension, perfumes, whispered gossip, and the restless growls of wolves waiting beneath human skin. At the center of it all sat AlphaKing Kale Draven. On his throne of dark iron and obsidian, Kale looked less like a king and more like a storm waiting to break. Tall, broad, shouldered, coldly handsome, his black hair brushed his collar, and his amber wolf eyes glowed faintly in the torchlight. Every woman in the hall felt it, the dangerous pull of his alpha aura, and yet none of them had ever been chosen. For 3 years in a row, the AlphaKing had rejected every single potential mate brought before him. Tonight would be the 4th ceremony. The court whispered nervously. Surely he will choose tonight. He must produce a Luna for the kingdom. If he refuses again, the elders will lose patience. But Kale looked utterly bored. Beside him stood his closest companion and beta commander, Rowan Vale, the only man in the kingdom who spoke to the king without fear. Rowan leaned closer and muttered quietly, "Try not to terrify all of them before they even reach the throne." Kale didn't move. "They terrify themselves." Rowan sighed. "You realize half the noble families here spent months preparing their daughters for this." Kale finally glanced at him. "I didn't ask them to." Rowan chuckled softly. "No, but you are the most powerful alpha alive. They'll keep trying until you give them a Luna." Kale's expression hardened. "I don't need one." The words carried the weight of absolute authority, but Rowan knew the truth. Kale didn't reject women because he was arrogant. He rejected them because none of them stirred his wolf, not even slightly, and an AlphaKing without a true mate bond could not risk choosing the wrong Luna. The ceremony began. A horn echoed through the hall. One by one, noble daughters stepped forward, silk gowns, perfect smiles, elegant bows. Each woman knelt before the throne, offering loyalty, beauty, alliances between packs. And each time Kale gave the same answer, no. Cold, immediate, final. The whispers grew louder, another rejection. Another humiliation. Some women left in tears, others in anger. Hours passed. Rowan rubbed his temple. "You're going to start a political war if you keep doing this." Kale leaned back lazily. "They'll survive." Another noblewoman stepped forward. Another rejection, and another, until finally the chamberlain cleared his throat nervously. "Your Majesty," that concludes the list. The hall erupted in murmurs. Again, the AlphaKing had refused everyone. Kale stood from the throne. "Good, then we are finished." But just as he turned to leave, the massive doors at the far end of the hall burst open. A cold wind swept inside. Everyone turned. A young woman stood in the doorway. Travel. Worn, simple clothes. No jewels, no noble escort, just a small bag slung over her shoulder. Her dark hair fell in messy waves around her face, and her eyes, deep gray like storm clouds, scanned the enormous hall with quiet confusion. She clearly had no idea what ceremony she had just interrupted. Rowan blinked, then groaned softly. "Oh no." Kale stopped walking. For the first time that night, his wolf stirred, not curiosity, not mild interest. Something deeper, something ancient. The girl stepped forward awkwardly. Excuse me." Hundreds of nobles stared at her in disbelief. The guards moved toward her. "State your business." She looked slightly embarrassed. "I'm looking for Rowan Vale." The entire hall froze. Rowan buried his face in his hands. "Oh gods," the girl pointed toward him. "There you are." She smiled with pure relief. "Rowan, your mother said you'd be here." Then she waved casually. "Hi, I'm Lena." She added the part that shattered the entire kingdom. "Your sister." Silence swallowed the hall. Rowan's sister. Rowan, the beta commander who had grown up in the capital, had a sister no one had ever met. Kale's wolf suddenly roared inside his chest, louder than thunder, louder than instinct, one word echoing through his mind. "Mate." Kale slowly turned toward her. And the moment Lena's eyes met his, the AlphaKing, who had rejected every woman in the kingdom, felt his control crack for the first time in his life. Rowan saw the shift instantly, and his face drained of color. Oh, this is bad, very bad, because the AlphaKing had just found his mate. And it was his best friend's little sister. The royal hall remained frozen in stunned silence. Hundreds of noble eyes moved between three people. AlphaKing Kale Draven, Beta Commander Rowan Vale, and the confused young woman standing in dusty travel clothes. Lena Vale. She looked completely out of place among the glittering nobles and polished stone floors. Her boots were dusty, her cloak slightly torn from travel, and her bag looked like it carried everything she owned. Yet somehow she held the attention of the most powerful alpha in the kingdom. Kale had not moved, not a single step. But inside him, chaos erupted. His wolf slammed against the walls of his control like a beast breaking out of a cage. Mate, the word echoed through his blood, hot, possessive, final. For years his wolf had remained silent through every ceremony, every noblewoman, every carefully prepared alliance. But now it was roaring, and it wanted her. Kale's golden eyes darkened as he studied Lena. She smelled like rain, wild forest air, and something uniquely hers. A scent that wrapped around his instincts like fire. Dangerous, addictive, unavoidable, Rowan noticed the change immediately, and panic shot through him. He stepped quickly in front of Lena, placing his body between her and the king. "Your Majesty," his voice was careful. Controlled, a warning wrapped in respect, Kale didn't look at him. His gaze remained locked on Lena. "Move," Rowan swallowed. "No." A ripple of shock spread through the court. No one refused the AlphaKing. But Rowan wasn't just any wolf. He was Kale's beta, his closest friend, the only man in the kingdom allowed to challenge him. Rowan lowered his voice. "Kale, think about this." Kale finally blinked, slowly, dangerously. "Move, Rowan." Lena leaned around her brother, confused. "Why are you standing like a wall?" Rowan hissed quietly. Lena stopped talking. She frowned. "What? Why?" She looked past him toward the tall man near the throne. Her eyes widened slightly. Oh, now she noticed him properly, the AlphaKing, tall, dark, powerful. He looked like someone carved from shadow and thunder, and he was staring directly at her, not politely, not casually, but like a predator who had just spotted something extremely important. Lena shifted awkwardly. "Did I interrupt something?" The court erupted in whispers again. Rowan groaned internally. This is a disaster. Kale finally stepped forward. The entire hall felt the shift in his alpha aura. Power rolled off him like a storm. Guards instinctively stepped back. Nobles lowered their heads. Even Rowan's wolf growled uneasily. Kale stopped just a few feet away, close enough to smell her clearly. His wolf surged again. "Mate," there was no doubt now. None. Lena tilted her head slightly. "You're staring," Rowan whispered urgently. "Lena," but she ignored him. She pointed lightly toward the throne. "So you're the AlphaKing." Kale's voice came out lower than usual. "Yes," she nodded thoughtfully. "Huh, that was all. Just huh." Half the noble daughters in the hall had spent years dreaming of standing before him. And this girl reacted like she had just seen a tall stranger at a market. Rowan felt a headache forming. Kale took another step closer. Rowan moved again to block him. Kale's patience snapped. "Rowan." His voice carried the quiet threat of an alpha command. Rowan stiffened, but he still didn't move. "You can't be serious." Kale's eyes flashed. "I am." Rowan's heart dropped. Kale, she just arrived. She doesn't know anything about court politics, pack law, royal obligations. "I don't care." The words were blunt. Final, Rowan lowered his voice even more. "You're the king. You can't just claim my sister because your wolf says so." Kale finally looked at him. And Rowan saw something terrifying there. Not anger, not pride. Need deep, instinctive, unavoidable. Kale spoke quietly. "I didn't choose this." Rowan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "Of course it had to be my sister." Meanwhile, Lena watched the two most powerful wolves in the kingdom argue about her, like she was a mysterious object. "Okay, wait." Both men looked at her. "Why are you two acting like this is life or death?" Silence fell again. Rowan opened his mouth, closed it, then sighed. Lena, he gestured toward Kale. You smell that? She blinked. What? Kale stepped forward again. This time Rowan didn't stop him. The king stood directly in front of her now. Close, very close. Lena felt it instantly. A strange warmth in her chest, a pull she couldn't explain. Her wolf, usually quiet, suddenly stirred awake, her breath caught. What is that? Kale's voice softened slightly. Instinct, her heart began beating faster. The air between them felt charged, heavy, like lightning before a storm. Rowan muttered under his breath, this cannot be happening. Kale leaned slightly closer, his wolf pushing forward. Testing the bond, Lena Vale, she swallowed. Yes, his golden eyes burned into hers. You're my mate. The words echoed across the silent royal hall. Gasps exploded from every corner. Noble daughters stared in horror. Pack leaders whispered furiously. The AlphaKing, the man who rejected every woman in the kingdom, had just claimed a girl who walked in off the road. And worst of all, she was his best friend's little sister. Rowan covered his face. This kingdom is about to collapse. Lena blinked slowly, then pointed at herself. Me. She looked at Kale, then Rowan, then the shocked nobles, and said the most dangerous words possible. I think you've got the wrong girl. The royal hall exploded with noise, gasps, whispers, angry murmurs. The AlphaKing had spoken only 4 words, yet they shattered every expectation of the kingdom. You're my mate. But the real shock came a second later, because the girl he had claimed looked directly at him and said, I think you've got the wrong girl. For a moment, even the torches seemed to stop flickering. No one in the entire kingdom had ever refused the AlphaKing. Rowan slowly lowered his hands from his face and looked at his sister like she had just stepped in front of a moving carriage. Lena, she glanced at him. What? He whispered urgently. You're not supposed to say that. She frowned. Well, he's obviously mistaken. A few nobles actually choked, trying not to laugh. Kale Draven, the terrifying AlphaKing who ruled over every pack, had just been politely rejected. Kale's expression didn't change, but inside him his wolf snarled loudly. Not in anger, in fascination. Every instinct in him expected her to react like the others had, with awe, fear, or desperate hope. Instead, she looked mildly concerned that he might be confused. Kale stepped closer. Lena instinctively stepped back. Rowan immediately moved between them again. Enough. His voice carried the authority of a beta. My sister just arrived after traveling across half the kingdom. She doesn't understand what's happening here. Kale's eyes darkened. She will. Rowan crossed his arms. No. The tension between the 2 strongest wolves in the hall thickened like a storm cloud. Around them, nobles watched eagerly. This was far better entertainment than the ceremony. One elegant noblewoman stepped forward from the crowd. Her silver gown shimmered under the torchlight. Her beauty was precise and intimidating. This was Lady Seraphine Calder, daughter of the most powerful noble pack in the Northern Territories. And the woman, many believed, would eventually become Luna. Her voice cut through the whispers like a blade. This is ridiculous. The hall fell silent again. Seraphine walked slowly toward the throne, her eyes locked on Lena. A random girl walks in wearing traveling rags, claims to be the beta's sister, and suddenly the AlphaKing declares her his mate. Her gaze moved to Kale. Your Majesty, surely you see how absurd this appears, Rowan muttered quietly. Oh great, not her. Seraphine stopped in front of Lena and looked her up and down. Disapproval dripped from every movement. This girl cannot possibly be Luna. Lena blinked. Okay, first of all, I never said I wanted to be whatever that is. Seraphine ignored her and addressed Kale again. The Luna of the kingdom must be strong, noble, trained in diplomacy and pack law. She gestured dismissively toward Lena. This one looks like she got lost on the road. A few nobles chuckled nervously. Rowan's wolf growled low in his chest. But before he could respond, Kale moved. In one smooth motion, he stepped forward, placing himself beside Lena. His alpha presence filled the room instantly. The laughter died. The torches flickered violently. Kale's voice was quiet. Deadly calm. No one asked for your opinion, Seraphine. Her jaw tightened, but the kingdom deserves the kingdom, Kale interrupted. Deserves the Luna chosen by its king. Silence fell again. Seraphine's eyes flashed with anger. But she doesn't even accept you. All eyes turned to Lena again. She raised her hands defensively. Why is everyone looking at me? Kale studied her. There was no fear in her scent. No greed, only confusion, and something else, honesty. His wolf liked that, very much. Kale leaned slightly closer to her. You feel the bond. It wasn't a question. Lena hesitated, because unfortunately she did. That strange pull in her chest hadn't disappeared. If anything, it had grown stronger the longer she stood near him. Her wolf stirred again uneasily. I feel something. Rowan groaned. Oh no, Seraphine's nails dug into her palms. This is unacceptable. She stepped forward angrily. Your Majesty, if you truly believe this girl could be Luna, then prove it the proper way. Kale looked at her coolly. What are you suggesting? Her smile returned sharp and calculating, the trial of the moon. A gasp spread through the nobles. Rowan's head snapped toward her. Absolutely not. But Seraphine continued. Let the moon goddess decide if this girl truly deserves the bond of the AlphaKing. Lena whispered to Rowan. What's the trial of the moon? Rowan sighed heavily. The most dangerous test in the kingdom. Lena's eyes widened. Oh, she looked at Kale. Please tell me I don't have to do that. Kale didn't answer immediately. Because his wolf was already certain. She was his mate. No trial would change that. But the kingdom, the court, the nobles, they would never accept her without proof. Kale finally spoke. The trial will happen. Rowan stared at him in disbelief. You're serious? Kale's gaze never left Lena. If she is truly my mate. His voice dropped lower. The moon will prove it. Lena rubbed her forehead. I came here to visit my brother. She looked around the enormous royal hall. How did my life turn into this in 10 minutes? Kale's lips almost curved into a smile. Almost, because his wolf already knew one thing. The girl who walked into his kingdom by accident was about to change it forever. The whispers in the royal hall spread like wildfire. The trial of the moon. It was not just a test. It was a judgment. A sacred ritual performed only a few times in the entire history of the kingdom. A trial meant to prove whether someone was truly chosen by fate or merely claiming power they did not deserve. Lena looked from face to face. Everyone looked either shocked, excited, or worried, except Kale. The AlphaKing stood calm, unmoving, as if the decision had already been made long ago. Rowan, however, looked furious. This is madness. He stepped toward Kale, lowering his voice so the court could not hear clearly. She doesn't even know what the trial is. Kale answered quietly. The kingdom needs proof. Rowan's eyes flashed. I don't care what the kingdom needs. That trial can kill her. Lena's head snapped toward them. Wait. She raised a finger. Did you just say kill? Rowan sighed heavily. Yes, she stared at him. Good to know. Then she looked back at Kale. So let me understand this. She pointed toward the nobles. All of them are upset because you said I'm your mate. Kale nodded once. Yes, and now they want me to do some deadly moon test to prove it. Yes, Lena crossed her arms. And if I refuse? Before Kale could answer, Seraphine spoke smoothly from across the hall. Then the kingdom will assume the AlphaKing has been misled. Her eyes glittered. And the bond will be dismissed as an error. Kale's wolf snarled inside him at the word error. A true mate bond could never be mistaken. But politics were cruel. Without proof, the noble Pax would challenge Lena's place beside him. Rowan looked at his sister seriously. You don't have to do this. Lena studied his face, then she looked at the enormous room again, the golden throne. The hundreds of watching wolves, the AlphaKing standing beside her like a silent storm. Finally she sighed. I was supposed to stay here for 2 days. Rowan groaned. Lena rubbed the back of her neck. Fine. Everyone leaned forward. She pointed toward Seraphine. I'll do your moon trial thing. Gasps erupted again. Seraphine smiled slowly. Wonderful. Rowan grabbed Lena's shoulders. Are you insane? Probably. She shrugged. But if I don't do it, everyone here will spend the rest of my life arguing about it. She looked at Kale. And honestly, I'd like to understand why your wolf keeps staring at me like that. Kale's eyes softened slightly. His wolf was practically pacing inside his chest. The bond was growing stronger by the minute. He spoke quietly. "The trial happens tomorrow night." Lena blinked. "Tomorrow." Seraphine nodded elegantly. "The full moon will rise." Rowan muttered under his breath. "This is a nightmare." Later that night, the royal castle had never felt so tense. Servants whispered in the halls. Guards spoke quietly about the strange newcomer who had captured the AlphaKing's attention. Inside a guest chamber overlooking the moonlit forest, Lena stood by the window. She stared out at the silver trees beyond the castle walls. Rowan paced behind her like a restless wolf. "You should leave," she turned. "What, tonight?" Rowan crossed his arms. "I can get you out before sunrise. No one would stop you." Lena tilted her head. "You want me to run away?" "Yes." She smiled faintly. "You forget who raised me." Rowan paused. Their childhood flashed briefly between them. Two wild siblings, raised in the deep forests far from royal courts. Their mother had always taught them one rule. "Never run from a challenge," Rowan groaned. "You're stubborn. Very." Before he could respond, a quiet knock came at the door. Rowan immediately moved to open it, and froze. Standing outside was AlphaKing Kale, alone. Rowan narrowed his eyes. "What do you want?" Kale looked past him toward Lena to talk. Rowan hesitated, then stepped aside reluctantly. Kale entered the room. The air changed instantly. Lena felt the strange warmth in her chest again, stronger this time. She cleared her throat. "So about this deadly moon trial?" Kale stepped closer, not too close. Just enough that the bond hummed between them. "You don't have to prove anything to me." Lena raised an eyebrow. "That's comforting." "But," he continued, "the kingdom will never accept you without it." Rowan crossed his arms again. "Then the kingdom can learn to mind its business." Kale ignored him. His attention remained on Lena. "Do you trust your wolf?" She hesitated. "My wolf is unusual." Kale's interest sharpened. "How?" Lena looked away toward the moon. "It doesn't behave like other wolves." Rowan stiffened. "Lena," she shrugged. "Well, it's true." Kale studied her carefully. Because suddenly something made sense. When he first felt the bond, it had not felt like a normal mate connection. It had felt stronger, older, more powerful. His voice lowered slightly. "What kind of wolf are you hiding, Lena Vale?" She looked back at him slowly, and for a moment her gray eyes flashed with something ancient, something wild, something that made even the AlphaKing's wolf pause. Lena gave a small, mysterious smile. "I guess we'll find out tomorrow night." Outside the castle windows, the moon shone brighter, and deep in the forest beyond the walls, something howled. Not like a normal wolf, but something far older, far more dangerous, and the AlphaKing suddenly realized something shocking. The girl everyone believed was weak might actually be the most powerful wolf in the entire kingdom. The night of the trial arrived faster than Lena expected. The full moon rose enormous and silver above the Blackthorn kingdom, flooding the forest with pale light. Every path leading from the castle toward the sacred valley was crowded with wolves, nobles, pack leaders, warriors. Everyone had come to witness the trial of the moon. Because tonight, the girl who appeared out of nowhere would either prove herself worthy of the AlphaKing, or be rejected by the very goddess wolves worshipped. The sacred valley lay just beyond the castle walls. Ancient stone pillars surrounded a circular clearing, each one carved with runes older than the kingdom itself. At the center of the clearing stood a smooth stone platform, known as the moon altar. No one stepped on it unless the moon demanded truth. Torches burned around the edges of the valley, but the real light came from above. The full moon hung perfectly overhead. Lena stood at the edge of the clearing, staring at the enormous gathering of wolves. "So all of them came to watch me possibly die." Rowan stood beside her, arms crossed tightly. "Encouraging, isn't it?" She glanced sideways at him. "You're still allowed to drag me out of here," he sighed. "You'd bite me, correct?" Rowan rubbed his face. "I should have left you in the forest." Across the clearing, AlphaKing Kale stood near the altar, surrounded by the royal guard. Even among hundreds of powerful wolves, he looked like the center of gravity itself. His presence pulled attention the way the moon pulled the tides. But tonight, his attention never left Lena. The bond between them pulsed stronger with every passing minute. His wolf paced restlessly inside him. Mate, protect her, stay close, yet Cale knew he could not interfere with the trial. The moon itself had to judge. Seraphine stood nearby in a long silver cloak, her expression calm and satisfied. Everything was going according to her plan. She stepped forward as the murmurs quieted. "People of Blackthorn," she announced loudly, "tonight the moon goddess will determine the truth." Her gaze slid toward Lena. "If this girl truly carries the bond of the AlphaKing, the moon will reveal it." She paused deliberately. "And if she does not, the kingdom will see that the bond was nothing more than a mistake." Rowan muttered under his breath. "I really dislike her." The High Elder of the kingdom raised his staff. "The trial will begin." He looked at Lena. "Step onto the altar." The entire valley fell silent. Lena walked forward slowly. Hundreds of eyes followed her. Some curious, some hostile, some eager for her to fail. Rowan clenched his fists. Cale's wolf growled quietly. Lena reached the center of the stone platform and turned toward the sky. The moonlight fell directly on her. "Bright, cold, ancient," the elder spoke again. "Under the gaze of the moon goddess, reveal your true wolf." A hush spread across the valley. This was the moment. Lena closed her eyes. Her heart beat slowly in her chest. For years she had hidden her wolf from strangers. Even Rowan had rarely seen it fully, because her wolf had always been different, wild, unpredictable, powerful in ways she barely understood. She whispered softly to herself, "Okay, let's not scare the entire kingdom." The transformation began. A wave of energy rippled through her body. Bones shifted, muscles tightened, silver light wrapped around her form. Gasps spread through the watching wolves, but then something unexpected happened. The moonlight around Lena suddenly intensified. The runes carved into the ancient stone pillars began glowing faintly. The elder's eyes widened. "That's not supposed to happen." Seraphine frowned. Cale's wolf froze. The air in the clearing changed. The transformation continued, but instead of the usual shadowy shift of a wolf form, a burst of silver light erupted from the altar. Wolves across the valley staggered back. The wind whipped through the trees, and when the light finally faded, a wolf stood on the altar. But not an ordinary wolf. Her fur shimmered like moonlit snow. Her eyes glowed a bright, luminous silver. And she was bigger than any wolf most of the crowd had ever seen. A deep, ancient power radiated from her like a living storm. The valley fell completely silent. Then the elder whispered in awe, "That's impossible." Rowan's jaw dropped. "Oh no," Seraphine stared in horror. Cale felt his wolf bow instinctively inside his chest, because every wolf in the valley could feel it. The power, the authority, the ancient bloodline. The elder spoke again, voice shaking. "She's not just a wolf." His staff trembled as he finished the sentence. "She's a moonborn alpha." Shock ripped through the crowd. Moonborn wolves were legends, creatures said to be blessed directly by the moon goddess herself. They were rare, powerful, destined for leadership, and the last one had lived nearly 3 centuries ago. On the altar, Lena's wolf lifted her head toward the sky. Then she let out a howl. The sound rolled across the valley like thunder. Every wolf present felt it deep in their bones. Some instinctively lowered their heads. Even pack leaders felt their wolves submit. Seraphine stumbled backward. "This can't be real." Cale stepped forward slowly. His golden eyes met the glowing silver ones of the enormous wolf. And in that moment, his wolf spoke clearly inside him. Our queen, the AlphaKing who rejected every woman in the kingdom, had finally found his mate. And she was not just any wolf. She was the rarest creature their world had ever known. But as the valley shook with shocked whispers, something else stirred in the dark forest beyond the sacred pillars. Hidden eyes watched the glowing wolf, ancient enemies that had waited centuries for a moonborn to appear. And somewhere in the shadows, a voice whispered quietly, "At last we've found her."